From Hall of Famers who probably shouldn't be there, to major champions whose personalities became bigger than their actual games. These are the most overrated golf players of all time. What if I told you that one of golf's most recognizable faces has fewer PGA Tour wins than Pat Perez, and that his win percentage is actually worse than some players you've never heard of? Welcome to the Ricky Fowler phenomenon, where orange outfits and social media stardom somehow convinced the world that style equals success. Here's a player who's been called the best golfer without a major so many times that people forgot to ask whether he's actually that good to begin with. The numbers are brutal. 6 PGA Tour victories and over 300 starts gives Fowler a win rate under 2%. That's not unlucky, that's a pattern. Compare that to Matt Kuchar's 9 wins or Webb Simpson's 8 wins plus a major championship, and suddenly Fowler's resume looks embarrassingly thin. The Oklahoma State hype machine launched him into stardom, complete with clothing partnerships and endorsement deals that suggested greatness was inevitable. Instead, we got a player who went 4 years between wins from 2019 to 2023, while guys like Tony Finau and Xander Schauffele lapped him in actual accomplishments. His Ryder Cup record tells the same story. Team USA went 1-4 in the cups he played in, hardly the clutch performer his reputation suggests. Even his breakthrough 2023 season at age 34 feels more like a career resurgence than proof he was underachieving all along. Sometimes the most colorful golfer produces the most colorless results. Quick quiz time. How many PGA Tour wins does the man who revolutionized golf fashion, made Diet Coke cool, and turned every tournament into a circus actually have? Take a guess. 10, 12, 15. Try 5. That's it. 5 measly PGA Tour victories for the most recognizable golfer of the 1990s. John Daly turned professional golf into performance art, complete with wild driving, wilder outfits, and a lifestyle that made rock stars look tame. The galleries loved him, the media couldn't get enough, and sponsors lined up despite his chaotic personal life. But strip away the mythology, and you're left with a shockingly thin resume. Yes, he won 2 majors in epic fashion. The 1991 PGA Championship as a 9th alternate, and the 1995 Open Championship at St. Andrews. Those moments were pure magic. But here's the reality check. Daly recorded just 3 top 10 finishes in 80 major starts and missed half his major cuts. He never finished a single year ranked in the world's top 25. In the years he won those majors, Daly was barely scraping the top 40 globally. That's a massive disconnect from how people remember him. His other 3 tour wins, second-tier events where Nolan Henke somehow finished runner-up twice. The Diet Coke drinking, casino-loving everyman created a legend that his golf clubs couldn't support. Up next, here's a Hall of Fame riddle. Which player won 21 PGA Tour events, but was so forgettably mediocre that most fans can't name 3 of his victories without Googling? Meet Davis Love III, the human equivalent of vanilla ice cream somehow making it into the World Golf Hall of Fame. Sure, 21 wins sounds impressive until you start examining where exactly he collected those trophies. 5 of his victories came at the same venue, Harbor Town Golf Links, 3 more at Greensboro. That's nearly 40% of his career wins at just 2 tournaments. Neither exactly considered premier events on tour. It's like padding your home run stats by playing half your games in a Little League ballpark. The major championship record is even more damning. In 101 major appearances, that's more than most Hall of Famers even played, Love managed just 8 top 5 finishes. He missed nearly 40% of his major cuts during an era that wasn't nearly as deep as today's game. 1 major championship in 1997, 2 Players' Championships. That's it for the marquee victories in a career that spanned decades. Compare Love's resume to Dustin Johnson. 24 wins, 2 majors, 64 weeks at world number 1, and multiple WGC victories. Johnson obliterates Love in every meaningful category, yet somehow didn't get the Hall of Fame call during his prime. Not all Hall of Famers belong in the same conversation as greatness. Some just hung around long enough to accumulate participation trophies. So let's strip away the Union Jack pants, the chest-thumping celebrations, and the Ryder Cup heroics. And what's left? A resume that would make a journeyman blush. Ian Poulter mastered golf's greatest magic trick, convincing everyone he was elite without actually being elite. The man they called the Postman because he always delivered, except when it came to individual trophies. Let's talk numbers, shall we? 3 PGA Tour victories in 2 decades. 3. Compare that to his European contemporaries. Luke Donald held the world #1 ranking for 56 weeks, Henrik Stenson captured a major championship, and Martin Kamer won 2 majors plus multiple WGCs. Meanwhile, Poulter peaked at 5th in the world and spent most of his career bouncing between 20th and 50th. And yet somehow, Poulter is the one remembered as the bigger name. His major championship record reads like a cruel joke: 0 wins and just 8 top 10 finishes across more than 70 starts. That's worse than players who never get mentioned in best without a major conversations. But here's where the Poulter mythology gets dangerous. People actually remember his Ryder Cup passion more than his actual golf. Yes, his 15-8-2 team record is impressive, but team golf is fundamentally different from individual excellence. It's like judging a basketball player solely on their playoff performances while ignoring their regular season stats. The fashion choices, the Instagram posts, and the fist-pumping celebrations created a brand bigger than the golf game underneath. When your greatest hits are team golf moments, your individual legacy rings hollow. On to the next. She was supposed to be Tiger Woods in heels, the teenage prodigy who would revolutionize women's golf and transcend the sport entirely. Instead, she became a cautionary tale about the dangers of astronomical expectations. Michelle Wie West turned professional at 15, with more fanfare than most major champions receive. The endorsement deals were massive, the media coverage was relentless, and the predictions were breathtaking. This was the player who would finally make women's golf mainstream. Fast forward through her entire career, and the trophy case tells a different story: 5 LPGA victories. 5. That includes just 1 major championship, the 2014 US Women's Open, captured at age 24 after years of struggles and setbacks. Context makes it worse. While Michelle was collecting headlines and appearance fees, her contemporaries were collecting hardware. Inbee Park won 7 majors during overlapping years. Lydia Ko captured 2 majors and spent significant time as world #1. Even players like Christy Kerr and Stacey Lewis built more impressive resumes while flying under the media radar. Injuries certainly played a role. Wrist problems and other physical issues derailed crucial seasons. But even accounting for that, Wie never achieved true dominance. Her highest world ranking was 4th in 2015, and she spent most years outside the top 10. The saddest part? Her impact on the game was genuinely positive, inspiring countless young girls to pick up clubs. Sometimes the weight of potential is heavier than any trophy. Coming in next. One magical week in 2003 made him famous. The next 15 years made him a trivia question. Picture this. A complete unknown, ranked 396th in the world, walks onto the windswept links of Royal St. George's and somehow outlasts the world's best players to claim the claret jug. It was one of golf's most stunning upsets, a Cinderella story that had even the most cynical observers believing in fairy tales. Ben Curtis's Open Championship victory was lightning in a bottle. And unfortunately for him, lightning rarely strikes twice in the same place. What followed that breakthrough was a career-long exercise in proving that one perfect week doesn't make a champion. Curtis collected just 3 more PGA Tour victories across the next decade and a half. 3. The world ranking tells the brutal truth. 24th in 2004, then a steady slide toward irrelevance. By 2008, he was outside the top 200, playing on sponsor exemptions and struggling to make cuts. His major championship record after that magical week reads like a slow-motion collapse. 2 more top 10 finishes across dozens of attempts. The saddest part? Curtis knew exactly what greatness felt like for 4 days in July. Then he spent 15 years trying to recapture something that was never really his to begin with. All right, take away the Masters jacket and the Ryder Cup passion, and you're left with one of golf's most frustrating enigmas. A player who spent 2 decades proving that talent without execution is just expensive disappointment. Sergio Garcia arrived on the scene with more natural ability than most players could dream of. The swing was pure poetry, the short game was magical, and the competitive fire burned hotter than a Spanish summer. El Niño looked destined for greatness from the moment he nearly caught Tiger Woods at the 1999 PGA Championship. Then something strange happened. He spent the next 18 years finding new and creative ways to not win golf tournaments. Garcia's PGA Tour record reads like a masterclass in underachievement. 11 victories in 406 starts. That's a win rate under 3%, the kind of number that would make a tour journeyman cringe. For someone with Garcia's raw talent and length of career, Those numbers represent a spectacular failure to convert ability into results. The major championship heartbreak became its own genre of golf theater. 4 runner-up finishes, countless near misses, and a psychological fragility that seemed to activate whenever the stakes got highest. Garcia didn't just lose majors, he found elaborate ways to lose them, whether through poor course management, mental meltdowns, or simply wilting under pressure. When he finally broke through at the 2017 Masters at age 37, it felt more like relief than triumph. One green jacket couldn't erase nearly 2 decades of squandered opportunities. Up next, beautiful swing, brilliant mind, explosive temper. The man with golf's most aesthetically perfect technique somehow perfected the art of sabotaging himself when it mattered most. Tom Weiskopf was golf's ultimate paradox, a player blessed with every physical gift imaginable who became his own worst enemy. At 6 feet 3 inches with a swing that moved like silk through butter, he possessed the raw talent to dominate any era. Golf instructors still show video of his mechanics to students decades later, calling it textbook perfection. But perfection on the range doesn't guarantee success on the course, especially when your mind becomes a battlefield of self-imposed pressure and volcanic emotions. Weiskopf's 16 PGA Tour victories tell only half the story. The other half lives in the tournaments he threw away with his notorious hot-headedness. Clubs launched into water hazards, scorecards torn up mid-round, and walking off courses when frustration boiled over. He once famously said he expected to win every time he teed it up, creating impossible standards that crushed him under their weight. The Masters became his personal psychological torture chamber. 4 runner-up finishes, each one a masterclass in how self-imposed expectations can poison performance. In 1975, he entered the final round in perfect position to claim his first green jacket, only to buckle under the pressure he'd created for himself. His lone major, the 1973 Open Championship, proved he had championship ability, but it also highlighted how rarely that ability escaped the mental prison he'd constructed. One major in a career of his caliber wasn't unlucky. It was the inevitable result of a brilliant golfer who never learned to get out of his own way. At 16, she looked like the future of women's golf. Now that she's retired, we know that future never came. Lexi Thompson burst onto the LPGA scene with the kind of power and potential that made sponsors salivate and fans dream of American dominance returning to women's golf. The youngest winner in LPGA history at 16, she seemed destined to collect majors like souvenirs. Instead, she collected heartbreak. 1 major championship. 1. In a career that spanned over a decade at golf's highest level, Thompson has managed just a single major victory, the 2014 Kraft Nabisco Championship. For a player with her length off the tee and natural ability, that's not unlucky. That's a pattern. November 2017 at the CME Group Tour Championship perfectly encapsulated Thompson's career, standing over a 2-foot par putt on the 18th hole that would have secured victory. 2 feet. The kind of putt weekend golfers make with their eyes closed, Thompson missed it, handing the tournament to Aria Jutanugarn in the cruelest way possible. The putting green became her personal purgatory. Round after round, tournament after tournament, Thompson would striped drives past her competitors only to watch crucial putts slide by the hole. Her world ranking peaked at 4th in 2015. Impressive, but never achieving the true dominance her talent suggested was inevitable. Distance means nothing if you can't finish. Thompson learned that lesson the hardest way possible, 1 missed putt at a time. Over 300 weeks at world number 1, only 2 major championships. The math doesn't add up, and neither did his closing rounds. Greg Norman dominated golf's official rankings like no player before or since, holding the top spot for an incredible 331 weeks throughout the 1980s and 1990s. For context, that's more than 6 straight years as the planet's best golfer according to every metric that mattered. Except for the one that mattered most, winning majors when they were there for the taking. Norman's major championship record reads like a masterpiece of self-destruction. The 1986 Masters, where he shot 78 in the final round and watched Jack Nicklaus claim his 6th green jacket. The 1996 Masters, where he entered Sunday with a 6-shot lead and somehow lost to Nick Faldo by 5. The blown leads, the crucial mistakes, the inability to close the door when it was wide open. 20 top 5 finishes in majors should have translated into far more than 2 victories. But the runner-up pattern extended beyond just majors. Norman finished second an astounding 31 times on the PGA Tour alone, each silver medal a reminder of what could have been. This wasn't a mediocre player getting lucky. Norman was genuinely great, a Hall of Fame talent with one of the most powerful swings golf had ever seen. But something always went wrong when Sunday's pressure mounted. Being number one in the world means nothing if you can't prove it when it matters most. Here we are, 3 years of brilliance, 30 years of reminding everyone about those 3 years. Guess which legacy lasted longer? Johnny Miller's 63 at Oakmont during the 1973 US Open remains one of golf's most legendary rounds, a masterpiece of precision on a course designed to humiliate even the best players. That Sunday afternoon, Miller was untouchable, hitting irons closer to pins than most players hit wedges. For the next 3 years, he was arguably the best golfer on the planet. The wins piled up, the scoring records fell, and Miller looked destined to dominate golf for a decade. Then, almost as suddenly as it began, the magic disappeared. 2 majors total, 25 tour victories, most crammed into that brief 1973 to 1976 window. After that, sporadic success and a slow fade as his putting stroke abandoned him. But Miller discovered something more valuable than consistent golf: a microphone. For decades at NBC, he built a second career, critiquing players who were achieving things he'd never accomplished. Every broadcast became an opportunity to reference his past greatness while diminishing others' accomplishments. "In my day" became his calling card, as if 3 peak years entitled him to judge entire careers. Miller's commentary made him more famous than his playing career ever did. He transformed from a brief shooting star into a permanent voice of authority. We're at the runner-up: smooth as silk, cool as ice, and surprisingly ordinary when you actually count the wins. America's sweetheart had more style than substance. Fred Couples possessed golf's most effortless swing and an impossibly laid-back demeanor that made him everyone's favorite golfer to watch. Looked like he was playing a casual round with buddies even when millions of dollars were on the line. The galleries adored him, sponsors lined up for him, and fellow players genuinely liked him. But likability doesn't win tournaments. 15 victories across 622 tour events gives Couples a win percentage of exactly 2.4%. That's not unlucky. That's a mathematical statement about converting talent into results. For a player who spent decades in the spotlight and was considered one of the game's premier talents, those numbers are shockingly mediocre. His lone major championship came at the 1992 Masters, where everything clicked for one magical week at Augusta National. Add 2 Players' Championships, and you have the sum total of Couples' marquee victories. The rest? A collection of wins at forgettable venues like the BC Open and Honda Classic, hardly the tournaments that define legendary careers. The swing was poetry in motion, the personality was magnetic, the career longevity was remarkable. But when you strip away the style points in California cool, Couples' trophy case looks surprisingly empty for someone who carried himself like a champion for 3 decades. Sometimes being everyone's favorite golfer matters more than being the best golfer. Here we have 8 Order of Merit titles in Europe, 0 major championships, 0 PGA Tour wins in 142 starts. The numbers tell a story that Europeans don't want to hear. Colin Montgomery dominated European golf like few players before or since, claiming 8 Order of Merit titles and establishing himself as the continent's premier golfer throughout the 1990s. His name became synonymous with European Tour excellence, and his Ryder Cup performances were nothing short of legendary. But there's a problem with regional dominance when golf is a global game. Montgomery's American adventures tell a different story entirely. In 142 PGA Tour starts, nearly 3 full seasons worth of attempts, he failed to win a single tournament. Not one. For a player supposedly among the world's elite, that's not a statistical anomaly. That's a pattern that exposes the gap between European Tour success and global greatness. The major championships present an even harsher verdict. 0 wins in 75 appearances, including missing nearly 40% of his cuts. 10 top 10 finishes across 19 years of major championship golf sounds respectable until you realize that's barely 1 every 2 years for supposedly one of the game's best players. It's genuinely very borderline whether Montgomery deserved Hall of Fame recognition at all. Yes, the Ryder Cup record was impressive and the European dominance was real, but golf's greatest players prove themselves on the world's biggest stages. Regional dominance doesn't make you a global great, it makes you a big fish in a small pond. Oh, and go and watch this next amazing golf video right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy!